Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, regardless of which part of the world you are tuning in from. And in fact, I'm excited and delighted to welcome you to another promising session of the Xtrendspeed Live. Well, before we start the session, let's quickly confirm that we are good to go this morning. That is, everything are fine. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, I will appreciate that you type in hi in the comment section so that we can get that confirmation that we are good to go. I would like to see some feedback, please, in the comment section, as this will help me in confirming that we are good to go. And if there are any issues, I will be able to do the appropriate adjustments so that we can have a better experience out here. So let's see what we have in the comment section. All right, so I can see Axmed44. Good morning to you, Axmed. Charita, good morning to you. Heal. All right, I see your comment too as well. 713458873. Good morning. Biskra070. Good morning to you. 520123. Good morning to you. Murphy G. Good morning. Happy New Week to you too. And I see Carrie. How are you, Carrie? Good morning to you. Trust you had a wonderful weekend out there. And Valerie, good morning to you. Glad to have you around too. So I think with this handful of comments and feedbacks, I want to assume that we're on the same page here. So we shall be moving right into the next phase of this session. So on this note, I welcome you all once again to yet another promising session. My name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I'm going to be your host as we take a comprehensive price action based technical analysis of the financial market. So today being the first trading day of the week, we are going to be choosing random pairs. Of course, I do have a handful of financial instruments that I want us to look at. In fact, I have been able to identify simple and interesting setups that we can actually take advantage of for the week. However, if you do have any financial instrument you want us to look at, this is the right time for you to drop it in the comment section. And trust me, if you have any, we shall be deliberating on this instrument throughout the course of the week. So if it's a currency pair, cryptocurrency, options, or commodity, whichever it is, feel free to let us have it in the comment section. So what we are going to be doing as usual is to explore the recent movement and chart patterns to uncover key insights that can potentially shape our trading decision for the new week. And of course, we are going to be conducting a comprehensive analysis utilizing simple but powerful setups that will be our compass through the current market structure. As usual, we shall be harnessing the power of trend lines, key level, and of course chart patterns to gain valuable insight into the historical price movement of the financial instrument we are going to be looking at today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome on board. I'm always very happy to have newcomers in the house. Well, what we simply do here is to come together as a community, gathering in anticipation of the New York trading session. And during this time, we shall be reviewing and managing if we do have current positions, while we also aim to position ourselves strategically for today's trading session. So once again, I welcome you guys on board. So with that being said, here we shall be diving right into the business for today. And as usual, you know how we do it. The first thing we want to be doing this morning is to check on the economic calendar. And you all by now know that these fundamental factors often manifest on the chart in technical patterns and price movement. And of course, by monitoring the economic calendar, we can easily identify potential correlations between key economic releases and of course specific technical pattern. And as a result of this, we have a better timing to be able to position ourselves in such a way that we can catch any potential move prior, during, and even after this event. So for today, Monday, July 17th, we do not have any high impact event. You know how we do it here. We normally focus on high impact event from economies that will be affecting the currencies we are treating. And based on the currency I've already prepared for us today, we are going to be looking at economic events from the US docket, the Japanese docket, and of course the United Kingdom docket. And for today, we do not have any high impact event. And as a result of this, I was able to filter in the medium impact event being the first trading day of the week. Let's see if we can have something to look out for to give us an hint or idea or where price action may likely be going. And I was able to see something coming in from the US economic docket, and that is the Empire State Manufacturing Index. This survey is conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and it gauges the business condition for New York manufacturers. So this is another indicator that can give us an insight into what the health implication of the US economy is. Generally speaking, a positive result indicates bullish for the US dollar, while a negative result shows poor growth for the US dollar. And from the previous data we have here, we have a 6.6 for the month of June. So we are looking forward to what this month is going to be. And there is a general consensus of 0, which I'm of the opinion that majority are thinking that there's been a contraction in the manufacturing index. So we are going to be looking forward to what the actual data is going to be. Is it going to be just as expected, below expectation, or even beyond expectation? So with that being said, here we shall be diving right back into the chart, and the first instrument we are going to be taking on, as usual, is going to be the US All Spot. Now, I had a couple of trades here this morning which has been taken out, and price action has been we've had a little bit of volatility in the last couple of hours now. So we are going to be looking at how we got to this point. And before we go into the details here, let's scale up into the higher time frame, where I will be sharing with you what I was able to identify during the course of the weekend. And in fact, we have a simple setup that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for this week. So what I did on the US All Spot commodity was to scale up into the 4 hours time frame, and right here on the 4 hours time frame, just by looking at the chart from an holistic point of view, you would agree with me that since the beginning of this month, price action has been bullish. And if we go take a step further to connect the series of higher lows here, you will see that we have an ascending trend line which emphasizes the bullish momentum in this market. And in fact, we have another one here which happens to be the resistance line of this channel. So it's looking as if we have an ascending channel at this point in time, which further emphasize the strength of the buyers at this point in time. Now, our center of focus for this week is going to be around this area here, after taking into consideration the nature of price action during the course of last week. Remember, at the beginning of the week, we saw how price action broke above the $74.50 level as we witnessed a very strong impulsive move to the upside. And as soon as price got into that $77.20 level, we begin to see sell pressure resume around that area, giving us a situation that's looking more like a retracement of that impulsive move. But with this situation here, we saw our price action closed just right around the $75.25 level to give us an insight into what may likely happen next week. And if you look at the structure closely, you would agree with me that we are at a critical point. Now look at this level here at the $74.50 level, which also shares a beautiful confluence with that support line of that ascending channel that we identified here. Now, with this situation here, we are at a critical point in the market where if depending on how price action reacts to this level, will determine what our next line of action will be. Now, if we see buy pressure resume around this area, then probably price action is going to be respecting that ascending trend line one more time to incite another wave of bullish momentum. However, if price action goes on to break down the ascending trend line and of course the $74.50 level, we are going to be getting ready for a sell-off. Now, if you look at what has been going on here since the beginning of the week and coupled with what happened before the live session began, we saw a sharp breakdown of that structure. Now, the question at this point is, will this be a true breakdown that will incite a sell-off in this market? Or is this going to be a false breakdown that will lead into a situation where price will climb back above the trend line to incite a trend continuation to the upside? Now, to better have an understanding of what is going on here, we will need to scale down to a much more lower time frame where things will become a little bit more clearer. Now, scaling down into the 1 hour time frame, I was able to identify a simple setup here in conjunction with deciphering what majority in the market is doing around the zone. Now, the first thing I did here on the US All Spot 1 hour time frame was to identify a demand zone which I was hoping that I'm going to be using as a platform to guide a bullish momentum for this week. Now, if you look at the structure closely and consider what has been going on here since Tuesday of last week, you will see how the zone here has been a major determinant of bullish momentum. So we saw how the bullish momentum started around this area on Tuesday. And since the break above of this demand zone, we can see how sellers has been struggling around that area, as every time price drops into that area, we saw how buyers took over the market to push price to the upside. And during the later part of last week, that is on Friday, we saw how price action came back into that $75.25 level and closed around that area. And that structure we saw around that area is more of a rejection of that zone. And it was because of the situation here that we identified that demand zone. And I was of the opinion that price action may likely continue to the upside if the continued rejection of that demand zone happens. Now, zooming in right here to see what participants of the market has been doing, and in fact how they have been reacting to that demand zone since the beginning of the week. And in order to do this, I was able to identify a flat channel. As you can see, this is the highest point where price action was at the beginning of the week, and that is the $75 level. And of course, we saw the support line here at the $74.45 area. So we saw here that at the beginning of the week that price action participants in this market were very much indecisive here, giving us a consolidation phase as participants were risk averse, trying to test waters and see where price action will likely go. And you know how we do it in this community. When price action falls into a range just like what we have here, we want to wait patiently for price action to either break out of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. And if you look at what happened here during the early hours of today, we saw the breakdown of structure, and in fact price action came back to retest structure to give me an opportunity to sell. And since then I sold, and price moved about 70 pips in my favor before, as soon as I noticed this, we moved our stop losses accordingly, secure this position. And look at what happened here. A couple of hours ago, we saw this sharp volatile move that took us out of our position. And if you had moved your stop loss, you would have been taken out at a worst case scenario of break even. Now, with this volatility we see in this market right now, what is going to be our next line of action? Well, looking at the structure from a technical standpoint, price action still remains below that demand zone, and of course we have seen a breakdown of that ascending trend line. And to further emphasize the strength of the sellers here, we finally have the breakdown of that first support line for the week, which is situated at the $74.45 level. So at this point in time, as long as price action remains below the demand zone, the ascending trend line, and of course the $74.50 zone, we would have no other choice than to continue to look out for selling opportunities. And you all know from a technical standpoint, when price action breaks down a key level like this, we expect that one point in time price might likely come back to retest the structure, and the appearance of continued selling pressure around this area on our lower time frame will be what we are looking forward to sell. Now, with the situation we have right now, do we already have price come back into the structure? Are we going to be seeing a second one in such a way that price will come back again into that zone before another wave of bearish momentum will happen? Or are we going to be seeing a situation here where price action will transition into a trend continuation pattern, something like a consolidation phase here, where the breakdown of the support line will welcome the trend continuation to the downside? So in this case scenario here, these are the two things we are going to be looking out for to join a bearish move. So as a result of this, we are going to be identifying another level here, which is at the $73.75 area, which is the lowest point price action has been for this week. And we shall be using this area as a yardstick to guide our trading activities going forward. So let us mark these levels out on our chart, and let me label it. So we have this area at the $73.75 level. All right, so I'm sorry for the break in transmission, please. And so around the $73.75 level is where we are going to be using to guide our trading activities going forward. So at this point in time, I'm of the opinion that if price action goes on to break down that level to the downside, then we are going to be looking forward to an opportunity to sell. So I want to have sell breakdown, retest of that structure to join another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So at this point in time, based on this current market structure, we shall continue to consider selling opportunities in this market. As long as price remains below the demand zone, the ascending trend line, and of course that zone within the $74.45 and the $74.50 level. Now, in as much as we're looking out for selling opportunities in this particular market, we cannot ignore the potentials of buyers. Remember, during the course of last week's trading session, we realized how strong the bullish momentum was. And this whole breakdown of the ascending trend line could actually turn out to be a false one, which we can't tell by now yet, but it could still come out to become a false breakdown. Now, if I'm going to consider buying the US All Spot today, I would want to see price action climb back above the ascending trend line in such a way that if price climbs above the ascending trend line, then you would agree with me that price action will be back within the buyer's territory that we identified here earlier. And if this is going to be the case, then we shall be looking out comfortably for buy positions around that area. So for us to buy the US All Spot today, I want to see price action climb back above the ascending trend line, and if possible, on our lower time frame, we begin to see some buy pressure resume around that area, then we could join another wave of bullish momentum, hereby having another buy stop order above the $75.25 level to maximize the potential of that bullish move. So this is what I'm going to be looking out for to be part of a bullish momentum on this one. But at this point in time, things are still looking very bearish, so we continue to hold on to a bearish bias as long as price remains below this zone here and the ascending trend line you identified earlier. So these are my views here on the US All Spot for today. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before we move on to the next instrument. and you can as well take that time to mark out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them to as a reference point to guide your trading activities for today. Nest 57, good morning. I see your comments. How are you doing today? Hilana Hatta, good morning to you. Kane Plain Gal, good morning to you. Fisherman 420, good afternoon. 8603, good morning to you. Trust you have had a wonderful weekend. So, in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. So, we shall be moving on to the next instrument on our watch list. So the next instrument on our watch list for today is the USTech100. In fact, I have a very interesting setup on this chart, but before we go into the details here, let's take a quick look at the higher time frame so that we can see things from an holistic point of view. So I will be scaling up into the 4 hours time frame, which is going to be our center of focus for today. Now, what I did here on the 4 hours time frame was to take into consideration the nature of price action since the beginning of this month. And in fact, if you look at this closely and even from afar, you can detect that price action is very, very bullish at this point in time. And in fact, when we begin to connect the series of higher lows and higher highs, we were able to identify an ascending channel, which we will be using to guide our trading activities for this week. Now, within this ascending channel, we also have an ascending trend line, which demarcates this ascending channel into half, as you can see. And if you look at this closely, you will see how since the beginning of this month, our price action had consistently respected or reacted to that trend line. So we saw selling pressure here. We saw selling pressure before we saw the breakout of the structure, and right now, even since last week Friday, we can see our price action is back along that trend line. So you would agree with me that we are at a critical point in the market where anything could happen, hence we need to understand the nature of price action around that area to decipher where price action is likely going to go. Now, in addition to this trend line is a key level I was able to spot around the 15,550 level here, a strong psychological level considering the round figure of that price, as you can see. And in fact, since Thursday of last week's trading session, we saw how that level had been a strong demand zone here. So as soon as sellers comes into that area, we saw our buyers came in to negate the potentials of the sellers, pushing price around above that structure. And since Friday, since the early hours of today, we can see our price action has been consolidating around that area. So it is very important for us today to see and understand our participant in the market is going to be reacting to this key level to determine what our next line of action will be. So is price going to be respecting this trend line, that is this ascending trend line one more time, this one right here? Let me highlight it for you so you can see. Is price action going to respect this ascending trend line one more time to incite another wave of bullish momentum where a breakout of the previous high at the 15,725 level will welcome more buy position? Or are we going to be seeing a situation here where price will drop below the ascending trend line and the key level to incite a sell-off, probably into the support line of the ascending channel to incite another wave of bullish momentum, or even break down the ascending channel to incite a sell-off? So you can see that whatever happens here is going to determine the direction of where price action will be going. So as a result of this information we have gathered here on the 4 hours time frame, we shall be scaling down into the lower time frame to dissect and project what our next line of action will be. So right here on the 1 hour time frame, this is what I was able to spot while trying to dissect what could happen here. Now, the fact that as soon as price action tested that 15,725, we saw a sharp rejection of that level by the sellers. And another thing about that area is the fact that it also shares a confluence with the resistance line of the ascending channel. Now, the question now is price action respecting the resistance line to incite a sell-off into the support line here to incite another wave, or is it going to be breaking it down to incite a trend continuation to the downside? Now, if we go on to take a further look at the structure, I'm beginning to see something that looks like a reversal pattern in the form of an head and shoulder pattern. Now, if we take into consideration the impulsive move that started last week, we can see something like the left shoulder here. We can see the head, and currently price action appears to be transitioning into the right shoulder, which is yet to mature at this point in time. And you know how we do it in this community. As soon as we identify a potential reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify the neckline of that reversal pattern, which coincidentally falls along our key level for the week at the 15,550 level that we identified on the 4 hours time frame. Now, for this reversal pattern to be validated, we would need a significant breakdown of that neckline, retest of structure to incite a trend continuation to the downside, which could give us a minimum of let's see how many pips, about 160 pips, if price action goes on to test the support line of the ascending channel. And if price action breaks down the support line, then we will be looking for more pips to catch there. So with the situation we have here, let's see how price action has been reacting to this level since the beginning of this week. Now, if we look at this structure closely, the highest point price action has gotten to for this week is around the 15,600. Let me call it that 15,600 zone. So we label it 15,600 level. That's the highest point price action has gotten to for this week. And the lowest point price action has gotten to for this week is that area around the 15,530. So we want to label this one too, mark these levels out on our chart. And now we have a flat channel to work with for today. Now, for us to sell, I want us to be having position ourselves just right below the 15,530 to join a bearish momentum to the downside. And if price action climbs above the 15,600, then this whole reversal pattern that we identify here will be negated, and continued buy pressure above this area will welcome buying opportunity, where the breakout of the 15,725 will welcome more opportunities to buy the USTech100. So our center of focus for today is simply between the 15,600, as you can see here, and the 15,530, where the breakout or breakdown of this range will welcome a trading opportunity in this market. So this is how we are going to be managing our position on the USTech100 for today. So let's be on standby to catch this move. So you want to be marking these levels out on your chart, as you will be needing them to as a reference point to guide your trading activity for today. So if you have any questions regarding what I just explained here, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before we move on to the next instrument. And you can as well take that time to mark these levels out on your charts. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page here, so we shall be moving right into the next instrument for today. So the next instrument on our watch list for today is the GBPUSD. Now on the GBPUSD, I have a position running at this point. It's a buy position at presently, and I'm currently running in a loss right now. But before we go into that detail, let's see what I saw on the higher time frame that made me to make that decision, and how we are going to be managing this position ahead of the new week. So the first thing I did here was to scale up into the higher time frame so that we can see things from an holistic point of view. And right here on the 4 hours time frame, I was able to identify a simple setup that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for this week. And in fact, if you look at the structure, it's looking a little bit like what we saw on the USTech100, as we have an ascending channel here, which further emphasizes the strength of the buyers in this market. Now, looking at the structure, you will see we connected the series of higher lows here to give us the baseline of this ascending channel, which is the support line. And then we have the resistance line of the ascending channel here, which was tested right there on Thursday trading session last week. And since then, price has been trading below that level. And within this ascending channel is a trend line here, which of course was broken to the upside to further emphasize the strength of the buyers during the course of last week's trading session. Now, with the structures we have here, we're simply going to, is a clear sign that buyers are very strong at this point in time. Now, our center of focus is not really about the trend line, but this area here where we want to see what has been going on in this market since last week's trading session, since price action found a new high at the 1.3140 level. Now look at what happened here as soon as price got into the structure on Thursday of last week trading session. We begin to see selling pressure resume around that area. Now, in addition to that is the fact that price action also tested the resistant line of the ascending channel, giving us continued selling pressure, pushing price to the downside. Now, with the situation we had here prior to the beginning of the session, we were able to identify a consolidation phase which lasted about 48 hours in this market. As you can see, price continued to range within that area, giving us a clue of how the market is within a very uncertain period, as participants are still testing waters to see where price action is likely going to go. And this is a peculiar scenario. Whenever price action hits a new high, we always see choppy situations which might lead into profit-taking activity, which would reflect on the chart as a retracement phase. Now, if you zoom out and see what has been going on since last week, we saw this impulsive move. And with this impulsive move that culminated at the 1.314, you would agree with me that a retracement phase at this juncture seems long overdue. And we might likely see a reversal pattern that will incite that momentum probably into the trend line, or go as far as testing this ascending trend line to incite the second wave of bullish momentum. But at this point, we can't jump into conclusions yet, so we will need to see how price action will be reacting to the support line of that range, which is situated at the 1.3100 level. And of course, this level here is going to be our key level for this week. Now, you know how we use our key level in this community. If price action remains below the key level, we want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of selling. But if price climbs above the key level, we definitely want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying. So in order to understand what is going on here, we will scale down into the lower time frame to see how participant has been relating to this key level since the beginning of this week. Now, when we scale down into the 1 hour time frame, we begin to see things clearly and see how participant in the market has been reacting to this current structure. Now, right here on the 1 hour time frame, let me zoom it in quickly so that we can see. So you will see that since the early hours of today, price action has been within a range. It has been range bound as price action remains trapped within our key level at the 1.3100 level, and of course the 1.30820 area to further emphasize the level of indecision at this point in time. Now, you know how we do it in this community. As soon as price action falls into a flat range like this, we want to remain patient waiting for signals, which of course will come either in the form of a breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. Now, with the situation we have here, I was able to identify another parameter which we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today, and that is this descending trend line after connecting the series of lower highs since Thursday's trading session. As you can see, price has consistently respected that trend line, pushing price to the downside. But one thing that makes this whole structure interesting is that since the beginning of the week, price is yet to find new lows. As you can see, how the 1.30820 level has continued to reject all attempt by the sellers to break through this structure. And for me at this point in time, if this buy pressure continues, it might likely be a platform that will incite another wave of bullish momentum for this week. So as a result of this, I had myself positioned just right above this resistance line at the 1.318 to buy the GBPUSD. So as long as price remains above the 1.3100 level, we want to look out for buying opportunity above this area. And one more interesting thing about buying above the key level at the 1.31 is the fact that that same level shares a confluence with that descending trend line that we identified here. So what this simply means is that if price action finally breaks out of this descending trend line, it will be a sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish momentum, and the breakout of that area might be a sign that we might be in for a reversal move to the upside. So above the 1.31 area was where I bought, and right now price action is running in a loss for me, and with a stop loss sitting right below the 1.30820 level, which is dovetailing to, let's see how many pips stop loss that is. That is about between 17 to about 20 pips stop loss on this current market structure. So I still remain bullish, and if you are not yet in this trade, well, I would advise you to have a buy stop order anywhere above the 1.3100 area to capture that bullish move to the upside. Or if you are a conscious trader, then you could wait for a breakout, then confirmations in the form of a retest of structure to join that uptrend continuation. Now, if price action goes on to break out of the 1.314, a level which has been the highest point price action has been, and of course an area where we have been noticing selling pressure during the second half of last week, we can be looking out for more opportunities to maximize that bullish move. So this is how I'm going to be looking out for buying opportunity today. So I hope the price will climb up and stay above this level for us to feel comfortable in our buy position. However, if price action finds it difficult to break above this level and continued selling pressure happens here, then we would have no other choice than to position ourselves for a bearish move. And to guide our bearish momentum today are two parameters here. The first one is this descending trend line, which of course, if price remains below this trend line, we shall feel comfortable in a sell position here. Now, how do we join this bearish move at this point? Now, if you look at what has been going on since the beginning of this week, you notice how price action had continued to find buy pressure around this area. And in fact, for me to sell, I want to see price action take out all the buy positions here, giving me further confirmations like a retest of structure to incite a bearish move to the downside. So what this simply means is that I wouldn't be selling the GBPUSD unless I cite a breakdown of the 1.30820, and then if we cite the breakdown of structure, we scale down into our lower time frame to look out for selling pressure to confirm that buyers have lost the momentum in this market. Then we can join the bearish move to the downside. So this is how I'm going to be managing my position on the GBPUSD. So we have very simple setup here where below the 1.30820 area is where we are looking out for selling opportunities, and above the 1.3100 level is where we shall be looking out for buying opportunities. So these are my views here on the GBPUSD for today. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Trust me, I am here and willing to be of help in that regard. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions, and you can as well use that time to mark out those levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your trading activities for today. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are on the same page. So we shall be moving on to the next instrument on our watch list. So the next instrument on our watch list for today is the XAUUSD. This is one of my favorite pair, the XAUUSD, and in fact, I already have two buy positions running at this particular point in time, and they are all in profit on this one. So we shall be looking at how I took advantage of that opportunity, and for those who had missed out on this opportunity, we'll see how we are going to be position ourselves for more trading opportunities on this commodity. But before we go into the details here, let's scale up into the higher time frame to see what things are actually looking like from an holistic point of view, as this will give us a better understanding of what is going on in this market. Now, scaling up into the 4 hours time frame, this is what I was able to spot here on the 4 hours time frame. Very simple setup. Remember, we took advantage of a very massive bullish opportunity which gave us over 600 pips in profit, as we maximized that move by adding more positions to our existing trade. You remember we rode this move all the way to the upside here last week, giving us that pips we were able to capture. Now let's look at what is really going on here around the structure. So what I did here was to take into consideration what has been going on in this market since the mid-month of May. And in fact, was quite clear that price action has been finding lower highs in this particular market. And when we connected the series of lower highs, we were able to spot a descending trend line, which of course has been guiding our trading activities in the last 2 months. Now, one interesting thing here that caught my attention here is that despite the fact that price action has been on a very strong lower highs and lower lows, we are yet to see a new low in the last couple of weeks. Now, one thing that happened here is that as price action got into the 1,900 zone, we begin to see sharp rejection signs that buyers are around this area. And this is, of course, a sign that participants in the market who are seeing the gold as very cheap enough to buy at this point. And considering the economic situation in the US, majority are leaning towards the safe haven, the gold commodity. Now, in addition to this, after this test of structure, the next thing we saw here was another higher low a couple of weeks ago, further confirming that buyers are gradually gaining a momentum behind the scenes. And as a result of these higher lows here, we identified this ascending trend line, which we said last week we were going to be using to guide our trading activity. And of course, it helped us to maximize that bullish move to the upside. Now, in addition to the structures here was the appearance of a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure. So when we took into consideration this bearish impulsive move that brought price into this low at the 1009, we saw this situation here as price was unable to break the previous low, giving us a higher low and giving us a situation that looks more like a double bottom structure. And you know how we do it in this community. As soon as we start seeing price action gradually transitioning into a reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify the neckline, which shall be validating that reversal pattern if it gets broken out of. And that was exactly what happened last week. We saw the breakout of both the neckline and of course the descending trend line here to emphasize the strength of the buyers at this particular point in time. And with the situation here, we were able to capitalize on that move and rode that move all the way to the upside. Now, our center of focus for this week is right here, right now, as we are not sure if this whole situation will lead into a trend continuation pattern or a reversal pattern. But one thing for sure is that if we look at this from a technical standpoint, that is price action breaking out of the neckline of that reversal pattern, we expect that one point in time there could be some profit taking activities which would reflect on the chart as a retracement phase, hereby leading into a situation where price comes back to retest the neckline of that reversal pattern to incite another wave of bullish momentum. Now that leads us to the question, are we going to be seeing a retracement phase for this week, or this whole consolidation phase here will turn out to be a trend continuation pattern to push price to the upside? So if we are going to be looking forward to a retracement phase, then definitely we want to be seeing price below the 1,955 to join a bearish move to the downside, probably into the neckline or even break down the neckline further, depending on how price action reacts to the 1,930. But if price action instant climbs up and continues to find higher highs, a breakout of the $1,963.50 level will welcome buying opportunities in this market. Now, with the information we have gathered here on the 4 hours time frame, we would want to scale down into the lower time frame to see how participants in this market has been reacting to the 1,955 level to decide if we are really going to be joining a retracement move to the downside, or probably this whole structure here will turn out to be an uptrend continuation pattern. Now, in order to do this, we shall be scaling down into a lower time frame like the 1 hour time frame, where I was able to spot something interesting here during the early hours of the week. Now, looking at the structure here, the first thing I did this morning was to acknowledge that since Thursday's trading session last week, we have seen a situation here where price action has been finding lower highs. And when I connected the series of lower highs here, in fact, I was able to identify a couple of trend lines to work with for this week. Then in addition to this trend line here was an interesting situation that went on in this market during the early hours of today, and that is this price action being trapped within a range between the $1,956.75 level and of course the $1,951 mark. Now, with this situation here, we have a structure to work with for the week, and you know how we do it in this community. As soon as price action falls into this kind of range, we want to remain patient, waiting for a signal to come in, which of course will either come in the form of a breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell, or the breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy. Now, with this situation marked out, what I did here was in fact, I had two buy stop order. I placed one above the 1,955 here at the breakout retest of that structure. Then I placed another buy stop order above the $1,956.75 level, which was a breakout of the resistance line of that flat channel we identified earlier. And immediately I had this buy position triggered. I had to move my stop losses to break even, so that if price action moves in the opposite direction, the worst case scenario I'll be taking out is at break even. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby. And if you are still on this buy position, you definitely want to be moving your stop loss at this point in time, as we never can tell what could happen from this area. The week is still very early, and anything, we're still yet to gain a momentum of where price action is likely going to be going. And one more interesting thing about this structure here is the fact that price action has broken out of this trend line. We had the breakout of this trend line here. We also had the breakout of this trend line, which are very good signs that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish attempt. Now, for those who had missed out on this opportunity, well, there's no cause for alarm here as the week is still very early. And you all know from a technical standpoint, whenever price action breaks out of a key structure, just like what we have here, there is a tendency for price action to come back and retest that level. So if it does come back and retest the level, we want to see price action begin to give us something like buy pressure around this area to give us an opportunity to join an uptrend continuation. So for those who missed out on this opportunity, and as you can see right now, we begin to see some selling pressure resume. Now the question now is price trying to respect the descending trend line, or probably retracing back into retest of the structure that was broken a couple of hours ago to incite an uptrend continuation. So let's be patient here and let's see how price would react. So if it does come back into the 1,955 zone or the $1,956.75 zone, what we want to be doing here is to wait out and see how price would react to the zone. So if buy pressure resumes around this area, so for us to see this, we want to scale down into our lower time frame. So it could be our 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even 15 minutes time frame to look out for buy pressure, and it could reflect on the chart as double bottom structure, head and shoulder pattern, whichever case it may be. Then identify the neckline of that reversal pattern, wait for the breakout to happen before joining that bullish move to the upside. So that is how we are going to be buying the XAUUSD today. And in fact, if price action continues to climb and find higher highs, then a breakout of the $1,963.50 level will be welcoming more opportunities to maximize the potential of this bullish move. And remember, that level has been a very strong selling niche in the past, where a breakout of that structure, taking out all the sell position, will be another beautiful confirmation that buyers are in here to stay, at least for the first half of this week. So these are my views here as regards to buying the XAUUSD for today. And in fact, you know how we do it in this community. In as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers. Now, with the current situation we have here, what are we going to see on this chart that will make us want to sell? Well, I told us earlier that we had a descending trend line, which of course supposed to be guiding our bearish momentum for today. At least if price remains below the trend lines, we should feel comfortable in a sell. But there is something here that negates that idea, and that is the continued buy pressure we have been noticing around the 1,951 since Thursday of last week's trading session. Now, if you look at this closely, you will see that at every point in time that sellers comes within the zone, we saw how they struggled and buyers took over the market to push price to the upside. The same thing also happened here on Friday, and it appears that the same scenario is going on again since the week has begun. As you can see, in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, price action has been finding buy pressure around that area. So if we are going to consider selling the XAUUSD today, I would rather want to see a breakdown of the 1,951 level. In fact, I want to see price action take out all the sell position here. That is between the 1,951 and the 1,952 area. So if price action breaks down the structure, then at this point, I want to start considering selling. Now, remember, we are not getting too excited here as we are not having a sell stop order below the structure. We want to remain patient and wait for further confirmations that sellers are actually coming here to stay. And to do that, we shall be scaling down into the lower time frame where we want to see patterns and structures that support the idea that buyers are struggling to climb back above the 1,951-952 zone. And this would reflect on the chart as a retest of structure. It could be the retest of the 1,951, retest of the 1,952, or in fact the retest of this descending trend line. But most importantly, what we want to see here is continued selling pressure where sellers continue to push price negating all attempt by the buyers to break out this level, then we can join a bearish move to the downside. So this is what we shall see here that will make us consider selling the XAUUSD today. And in fact, if price action goes on to push price to the downside, remember that we have a trend line here, which you of course want to be marking on your chart, as depending on what happens along this trend line will determine the next phase of price action. If buy pressure resumes above this trend line, then price wants to respect the trend line one more time to push price to the upside. But if price action breaks down the trend line, then at this point we will start considering adding more position, and we might be in for a massive sell-off in this market. So these are my view on the XAUUSD for today. I hope I was able to make myself clear and make things as simple as possible for you to comprehend. So with the situation we have here, our center of focus remains between the $1,956.75 level and the 1,951 area, where I've told you if price remains above this structure, we feel comfortable in our buy position, and if price action drops below the 1,951, we shall be looking out for selling opportunities. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD. So you want to be marking out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your trading activities for today. So if you have any questions whatsoever as regards to what I've explained so far, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the comments and see if there are any questions before we draw the curtain for today. So you can as well take that time to mark these levels out on your chart. So I'll just zoom it out a little bit bigger so that you can see things more clearly. Mark out those levels and let's see how price action will play out in the next 24 hours. All right, so I can see some comments. I can see Can786. I see your comment. 835464222. Hi, how are you? Grizzly is asking if we can do USDCHF. Is Grizzly still in the house? Are you still around, Grizzly? Let me know if you're still around. Jack Racentis, good morning to you. 81570, good morning. Sydney, good morning to you too. 665, good morning. 799, good morning to you. Kilfa, is it Kilfa or Cliffa? All right, good morning to you. Glad to have you around. Assalamu alaikum, I think. All right, okay. Grizzly says it's still around. Okay, so let's run through I'm already out of time, but I'll just run through briefly the USDCHF chart to see what we should be looking out for here. So I will bring up the USDCHF. It's been a while since I traded the USDCHF sincerely. And okay, I think I did some analysis on it a couple of days ago, I guess. So let's look at it together. Let's look at it together and see what to look out for. So on the USDCHF, this is the current market structure. So we want to scale up into the higher time frame so that we can see things more clearly here. So on the daily time frame, this is what we were able to spot here. So it's very clear that price action has been very, very bearish for I think since the last quarter of last year. It has been very bearish. So now in this scenario, the first thing we are going to be doing here is to acknowledge the bearish momentum by connecting the series of lower highs here to give us a descending trend line that we shall be using to guide our trading activities going forward. Now, in fact, let me see what I can do here. I'm just trying to see which of the trend line will pick most of the pivot highs here. I think this one will do. This one will do. Okay, now with the trend line figured out here, let's have this bolding a little bit so that we emphasize the importance of this trend line, as you can see. Then another thing about this structure is the lowest point price action has been for this year. Now, if you look at this, hold on a second. So if we look at the structure here, you will see that the lowest point where price action has been for this year is around the 0.85700 area, a psychological area, which of course will be serving as our key level for this week. So let's mark this level out on our charts. 0.85700 level going to be serving as our key level for the week. So my key levels are always gold in color. All right. So right now, what we notice here is that since Thursday of last week's trading session, we begin to see some buy pressure around this area. Now, what we are going to do is to scale down into a lower time frame at this point to see if we can see a reversal pattern, probably a double bottom structure, a head and shoulder pattern that will confirm that buyers are gradually gaining momentum, probably back into the trend line, maybe. Or are we going to be seeing a situation where this whole pattern that we'll see here will be a trend continuation pattern that will lead to the breakdown of this key level to incite a bearish move to the downside? Now, to have a better understanding of what is going on here, we would need to scale down to a much more lower time frame. So first of all, let's scale down into the 4 hours time frame and see if we can have a pattern to work with around that area. Now, hold on a second. I need to make my key level show up on the lower time frame. So let's do some adjustment here. Beautiful. So we go down into the 4 hours time frame. Now look at what we can see here on the 4 hours time frame. It's quite clear that we begin to see something that looks like a reversal pattern. Now let me show you, let me give you a visual representation of what I'm talking about. So if we take into consideration this impulsive move to the downside, we saw our price action tested the 0.8570 right there on Friday. Price climbed up, and since the beginning of this week, we can see that price is yet to break down the previous low, which is a clear sign that we might likely be seeing price action continue to the upside. And if this turns out to be the case, that is, price was unable to break the previous low at the 0.857, then we will be in for a reversal pattern. Now, you know how we do it in this community. As soon as we start noticing that price action is likely going to evolve into a reversal pattern, the next thing we want to do is to identify the neckline, which we are going to be using to validate the potency of this reversal pattern. So we have the neckline situated at the 0.8630 level, another psychological level there, 0.8360. Am I correct? 0.86300 level. So I would want to give this a blue color to differentiate it from my key level. So here we go. So we have our key level right here at the 0. We have our neckline. Our potential neckline is a potential neckline now because it's yet to be confirmed. So we want to see a breakout of the 0.86300 level for us to capture this trend continuation to the upside. So this is what we shall be looking at to join a bullish momentum. So if price action breaks out retest, then we're going to be in for a bullish move to the upside. So let me label this area. So we're looking forward to a breakout retest of this level to join a bullish momentum to the upside. So that is how we are going to be buying this one. So a breakout of this level will have validated this reversal pattern here we see here, and then we can join that bullish move to the upside. However, if price action does not break out of the 0.63 and instead continues to drop and find lower highs here, then we will have no choice than to get ready to sell at the breakout breakdown retest of the 0.85700 area. So we have the breakdown retests of the 0.8570 as a sell opportunity. So it's a very simple setup we have here on the USDCHF. So our center of focus for this week on the USDCHF is simply between the 0.86300 level and of course the 0.85700 area where depending on how price action reacts with the resistance and the support line of this range will determine what our next line of action will be. So I hope that you position yourself in such a way that you can capture any of these potential opportunities when they finally happen. So is Grizzly still in the house? If you are still in the house, please let me know. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before I draw the curtain for today. So let's see what we have here. I see 6093. How are you, 6093? Trust you are doing very well. And I'm waiting for Grizzly for the next 10-15 seconds. All right, so I guess Grizzly's left the room, I guess, and it's unfortunate. I went the extra mile to ensure that you had your wish come true, but you're not around anymore. It's okay. So I think on this note, we shall call it a day here. It has been a wonderful moment with you guys. It has been a very interesting first day of the week. We've been able to identify simple but powerful setups that we can use to guide our trading activities for this week. And in fact, I implore us to remain patient, wait for our structures to mature before we jump into any position at this point. And I do hope you've marked out these levels on your charts so that you can use them as a reference point to guide your trading activities for today. So it's on this note I want to wish you best of luck today. And in fact, for those who are joining us for the first time, I hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discuss here. And trust me, the more time you spend with us, the better you'll becoming eventually using the information you have gathered here to make your independent decisions. So I look forward to seeing you guys same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, as we come here again to review how well this instrument has been doing so far, and at the same time get ready for the New York session tomorrow. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye bye.